is not a therapy. You know, sometimes we think of it that way because why? Bandler and Grinder analyzed, if you will, therapists. You know, Bandler and Grinder analyzed Virginia Satir and modeled her. They analyzed Fritz Perls and modeled him. They analyzed Frank Farrelly, provocative therapy, and modeled him. And then they got to Milton Erickson and started modeling him. And I was like, holy Toledo, that's the mother lode. This guy has got a bunch of stuff here. And much of NLP really comes out of their modeling of Milton Erickson and his method of doing psychotherapy and hypnosis. You know, much of what we think about, the rapport, the matching mirroring, the pacing and leading stuff, all Erickson stuff. You know, the language patterns, the Milton model, they call Milton model NLP, language patterns, all Erickson stuff. You know, because what were they doing? They were modeling, and they're saying, well, how does he do what he does? Let's analyze that, let's model that, let's take that up. But that modeling thing, it doesn't have to be done just with therapists. You know, you can do that same process of analysis and modeling with, you know, golfers, with chauffeurs, with, you know, businessmen, stockbrokers, you know, whatever it is that you want to model. NLP is about this. What is the title? It's the study of the structure of subjective experience. Right? That's the subtitle of NLP Volume 1. NLP, the study of the structure of subjective experience. That subjective experience has a structure to it. You see things, you hear things, you build this model in your brain, this holographic reality, this, you know, internal representation of the world out there, and you operate within that. It's got a structure to it. Everybody's is unique and individual. And because I have this particular unique and individual way of looking at the world, that gives me the ability to do certain things. Right? I can do certain things really well. I can also maybe not do certain things particularly well. But I can do other things really, really well. Right? And so can you, and so can everybody. Right? Everybody has their own unique sets of abilities. So what NLP says is, well, jeepers, if that's true, and it is, then we can find out what that structure is. We can ask questions, we can use the meta model, we can do whatever we need to do to find out what is the structure of that person's subjective experience so that we can, in a sense, take it on ourselves and develop that ability that they have within ourselves. Whether it's a therapeutic model, so I can be more like Milton Erickson, or whether it's a golfing model, so I can be more like, you know, Tiger Woods, or, you know, a chauffeur model, so I can be more like, you know, Joe the chauffeur, or something. You know, so I can become the best damn chauffeur in the world. You know, nothing wrong with that. Right? So you can model the ability that a person has. Now, what's also interesting about that is that sometimes the modeling thing, you find out the ability, is that you can take it as sort of a reverse effect. In other words, everything a person does is an ability. So for instance, if a person has a phobic response of flying, if they just can't even think about a plane, that's a what? That's a subjective experience, isn't it? Anybody here totally terrified of flying and can't fly? No?
But I can't. But I don't like crowds.
Fine.
Like,
So
you know David Park.
Yeah.
One time we were walking, he wanted to walk through a festival, and when he said that, I cringed. I was like, sure. And we walked through, and I started speeding through. And he's like, "Don't you want to look at stuff?" And like,
No,
you know,
we're gonna get
I'm like,
through
"Nope,
here."
nope, 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 nope." And he said, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "I really don't like crowds, but I live in New York." But what I mean is like when they're closed-in crowds. I get sweaty, and like I can't handle it. Like malls, huge malls, like the big mega malls.
That's why I live in Kansas City.
That's right. Huge mega malls, I can't stand those either. Yeah.
But seriously, subjective
That's a
experience.
phobia, right?
Well, no, it's
Sort of.
It's not exactly phobia if you were able to do it. It's a discomfort. It's a phobic.
No, but
Type
when I
of
went
thing.
into a mega mall, my mom really didn't listen to me. And I was like a teen. And I had to stop. I was going to faint, and I was really sweaty. I was dripping in sweat. And I had to stop and like lay back.
Sounds phobic to me.
Yeah. I just couldn't. There's too many crammed noises
So
everywhere.
if we were to model that ability of yours, right? Because think about it. It's an ability, right? It's not a good one, but it's
Well, it
good.
might have a good application.
Right, absolutely, yes.
To be in crowds?
In a terrorist or, you know, something or.
Oh, yeah.
There
I
can
would be the
always,
first one to faint.
there can always be a positive application of any ability, absolutely, that's true. In fact, Stephen Gilligan has a set of tapes, Stephen Gilligan, an Ericksonian hypnotherapist, studied actually with Erickson. You know, has a set of tapes, maybe on CD by now, called The Solution, no, the problem is the solution. You know, the problem is the solution. That's one of the tenets really of Ericksonian psychotherapy is that, you know, any ability has an application that's positive in some context. I don't know specifically what context that would be in this case.
Well, he asked me, he said, would you like me to bring you through a brief hypnosis if you get over this? I'm like, nope, I like not being in crowds.
Okay, good.
That's my preference.
There you go.
Just doesn't come in handy when there's like another instance where there's a baseball game.
But you
and it
also
rains.
have the ability to do that thing that you did with him, is put those blinders on and get through the crowd. You have the ability to deal with it.
Yeah, the only time it's a disadvantage is if there was a situation where I was at a baseball game and it started to rain and we all had to leave the stands and go into this crowded, like it would be at the Yankee Stadium, everyone's crammed into the, you know, the indoor spaces.
So it wasn't
And
very
I started to like kind of wig
You
out.
couldn't just get
I
through it.
couldn't
yes,
get out,
yeah.
and I started to do that
So that would be
hot
useful to
TV
say
thing.
yes next time someone offers.
Yeah. Next time I might want to say,
Someone
okay.
offers to do a little brief hypnosis thing to have that, say yes, that'd be fine, thank you. In certain situations, I think that'd be nice. But if we were to be a therapist, talking with her about this issue, we could say, cool, how do you do that? And apply the same process of analysis and modeling to the problem situation so that we really understand the structure of this problem situation, not so that we can take it on ourselves, but so that we can do what? Fuck it up. we can, I'm sorry, technical term, to perturb the system. We can, as Erickson would say, we can perturb the system. We can make it so that, you know, we take the spark plug out of this particular automobile, you know, drain the gas tank, you know, take the wheels off it, make it so it doesn't run, right? So that when she gets into a crowd, this old ability just doesn't function anymore. The program doesn't boot, another way of putting it. It just doesn't go. So you figure out a way to make that not happen. And then say what would be a better thing to do and find somebody else who has an ability. So what NLP really is, at least from the get-go, is the study of the structure of subjective experience. Basically so that you can do one of those two processes. Either, you know, perturb the structure and make it so it doesn't function, and find one that does function, does work. So this can be applied to anything. You know, modeling excellence. Find somebody who's good at what you want to have, what you want to do. Find somebody who's good at that. Find out how they use their brain to accomplish that. What are the beliefs they have? How do they represent it to themselves? Is it visual? Is it auditory? Is it kinesthetic? You know, what is it that they're doing to allow them to have this ability? How does this function? You find out their structure. You model their ability. That's what NLP is all about. If you do it in a therapeutic context, it's a therapy. But it doesn't have to be, right? It can be about race car driving. Right? So, one of the applications that they found early on that was useful was spelling. Anybody know how to spell the word necessary? Anybody? Necessary?
We don't need to.
Yeah, N-E-C.
Gosh, put that in there. Oh. Yeah. This is one of those tricky words for some people. You know, that it's just one of those things that many people seem to have trouble spelling from time to time. I know I have had trouble spelling this one from time
Do you
to
put
time.
2 C's?
I have put 2 C's. Sometimes 2 C's, 1 S. Sometimes 2 C's, 2 S's. You know, never quite sure until I did this. Well, what they found is that really good spellers are not necessarily good first grade students. In other words, when we were kids, we were taught to read, most of us, at least I was, I'll speak for myself,